Tonight, misery for motorists. Fuel prices see their biggest daily jump in 17 years, and there are warnings more of us could soon be paying £2 a litre. Those providing essential services say it's crippling.
You have to think, have I got enough fuel to take me to my work? And have I got enough fuel to use my car at home? So sometimes, you don't go out at home because you have to use it for your work.
Rail passengers don't have it much better with a summer of strikes ahead, and Scotland fans told they may struggle to get home after tonight's game.
Yes, we are here at Hampden ahead of the game against Armenia as Scotland kick off their Nations League campaign.
And the Lion King roars into Edinburgh, bringing the Serengeti to the Playhouse stage. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The misery for motorists is continuing as petrol saw its biggest daily jump in price in 17 years yesterday. The average cost of petrol now stands at just over 180 pence per litre, and diesel is sitting at more than 186 pence. In some places, fuel has already passed the £2 per litre mark, and there are fears that could become commonplace this summer, meaning filling up a standard family car could cost £110.
It's another blow to people's finances, and the impact is more widespread than might be realised at first. One charity has told us it's putting the service they provide at risk, as Ollie Dickinson reports.
Rising petrol prices means everyone is feeling the pinch at the pump. Meals on Wheels services like this one in Edinburgh are no exception. They deliver food to around 260 vulnerable or elderly customers across the city. But the cost of fuel means getting lunches and dinners to those who need them is getting more and more expensive.
We cover the cost, but the cost of transporting this food, essential food to people, is growing. The prospect of further rises is really going to affect not only our ability to provide food, which we do, it's also going to affect our staff in terms of their ability to travel to and from work.
Nurses who travel as part of their work got a 5 pence rise in their fuel allowance in April, but some say they're already being left out of pocket as prices spike.
You have to consider how often you go to a patient. And some of our areas are very diverse. Lot of distances to travel. So you have to think, have I got enough fuel to take me to my work? And have I got enough fuel to use my car at home? So sometimes, you don't go out at home because you have to use it for your work.
The price we pay at the pump has been rising for almost 2 years now. In June of 2020, petrol was on average £1.07 a litre, whilst diesel was £1.12. By the 1st of January this year, though, that had gone up to £1.45 for petrol and £1.48 for diesel. However, in the last 6 months, that average price has rocketed. Yesterday, it was £1.80 a litre for petrol and £1.86 for diesel.
This is probably the most uncertain time drivers have ever seen. The drivers are questioning which journeys they make. Obviously, for lots of people, lots of driving is essential because it involves going to work or doing the shopping or looking after a loved one. There's all kinds of reasons that we know that people drive. In fact, 8 in 10 people tell us that they'd struggle to get by without a car. So it's essential for a lot of people.
Meanwhile, haulage companies transporting food and goods across the country are warning that rising prices will be passed on to customers at the tills.
I was speaking to one of our members yesterday who is a 50-vehicle operator, and their fuel bill has increased by £16,000 per week. You may have an operator that can pass that on in terms of a fuel escalator, which then in turn passes the cost on to the end user, so nobody's winning out of that. And secondly, they may have to absorb that cost, which some smaller operators just cannot do.
The UK government says they understand that people are struggling with rising prices and have cut fuel duty by 5 pence. Wholesale prices fell yesterday. Drivers now need to wait to see if that fuels any reductions on the forecourts. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Well, live now to our political editor, Colin Mackay. And Colin, we've been hearing about the problems facing drivers. Rail passengers don't have it much better, do they?
Absolutely. The problem for them is not so much fuel costs, it's finding a train in the first place. Take that Scotland game at Hampden tonight. The last train back from Mount Florida, the nearest station to Hampden, back to Glasgow Central, leaves before the end of the match. And then once you get back into the city centre, there's no extra trains laid on to get you home either. So ScotRail can get you to the ground for kick-off at 7:45, but don't rely on them to get you home afterwards. That was something that was raised by the Conservatives in the Parliament today.
Football fans have been used to leaving matches early to beat the rush. In this case, they've been told to leave early because there is no rush. There are no trains. Can the Minister just agree with me that this situation is not acceptable, and would you like to apologise to the Tartan Army?
Minister.
Traditionally, ScotRail do carry far more supporters to Hampden games than return, so approximately 7,000 fans travelled to the Ukraine match last week, only 2,500 travelled back, as generally fans prefer to walk back to the city centre. It's also worth saying that the crowd tonight is expected to be far smaller than the Ukraine game.
Now, this all stems from the pay dispute between the drivers and the drivers' union ASLEF and ScotRail. The drivers are refusing to work overtime and rest days, and that's led to a much reduced timetable right across the system, with 700 services slashed so far. But they're both due back around the negotiating table tomorrow to discuss perhaps new terms after ASLEF rejected the offer last week.
And Colin, this isn't the only problem on the railways, is it?
No, we're heading for a full-scale rail strike right across the UK. RMT members are due to walk out for 3 days later this month, the 21st, the 23rd and the 25th of June. They haven't had a pay rise in 2 years. The union says they're facing some compulsory redundancies, and they say that Network Rail and the UK government won't even negotiate with them.
We've deliberately targeted Network Rail and the train operating companies in order to actually have the maximum impact. We don't want to actually take strike action, and we're actually appealing to the government, we're appealing to the train operating companies to actually see sense, get round the table and start the negotiations.
We have been talking with our unions before the strike dates were announced, and we're keen to continue to talk to them. We want to find a compromise that will resolve their concerns without the need for industrial action, and we're committed to doing that between now and the first day of strike action taking place.
So Network Rail say they will talk. The RMT say there's no sign of talks. Today the Prime Minister described the strikes as reckless, and the union says it's going to bring the entire system to a grinding halt, with staff walking out, with pickets at the big railway stations, and that's just the start. If they don't get round the table, there could be a summer with a lot more strikes ahead.
All right, Colin, from the Scottish Parliament, thanks very much.
The Sheku Bayo inquiry has heard from a witness who filmed police officers restraining the father of two from her bedroom window. Ashley Wise told investigators at the time she heard the man on the ground screaming and that the horrible sound had given her chills.
Today, she said she couldn't remember the events of 7 years ago, but that her memory would have been clearer at the time. Mr Bayo died while in police custody. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
The inquiry has heard this video was taken 1 minute after Sheku Bayo was restrained by police officers. This afternoon, the woman who took this footage on her mobile phone from her bedroom window gave evidence. Ashley Wise said she'd been woken up on the 3rd of May 2015 by flashing lights outside. She then started filming what she saw in her street. The witness was taken through the statements she made in the days that followed, in which she had described hearing the man on the ground screaming.
And it appears that you did say to the PERC at the time that you heard the man screaming. It was a horrible sound and it sent chills through you. Should we understand that you have no recollection of that today?
Well, I can't remember that now.
But if you said that to the PERC, then would that have been you telling the truth
Yes.
and doing your best to give a complete and accurate account?
Yes.
I've got him under control now. Thanks.
Look at this.
The events of 7 years ago on Kirkcaldy's Hayfield Road have been reconstructed with recordings from CCTV, emergency calls and witnesses' phones. Miss Wise recalled today the noise she could hear from the police activity was muffled. It's understood this footage was taken before leg restraints were placed on Sheku Bayo.
What comes into my head now is I remember the tape round his feet, him lying on the ground and the police officers round him.
Yes.
There's a reference there to Sheku putting up a fight. Again, do you have any recollection of that now?
No.
In a statement made 2 days after Mr. Bayo's death, the witness told investigators she felt officers were being really rough with the guy. She said in the way they were pouncing on him.
Can you help us in any way with what you might have meant there? I think what I meant was I don't know how you restrain somebody, so if, maybe you were having to be a little bit more straight to the point to do what they needed to do to restrain.
The inquiry will hear from its next witness tomorrow. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Boris Johnson was accused of being a lame duck Prime Minister as he faced MPs in the Commons for the first time since scraping through a confidence vote in his leadership. He's determined to continue and says absolutely nothing and no one will get in the way of delivering for the British people.
But when only 2 Scottish Tory MPs supported him on Monday night, Boris Johnson also faced questions over how he can continue as Prime Minister without the backing of unionists here. Our Westminster correspondent Catherine Sampson was watching.
The usual departure shot, but not the usual arrival noises. Boos outside Parliament. Inside, cheering from those Tory MPs who remain loyal. But more than 4 in 10 people on those benches behind Boris Johnson voted for him to go.
Can the Prime Minister explain if 148 of his own backbenchers don't trust him, why on earth should the country?
Prime Minister, absolutely nothing and no one, least of all her, is going to stop us with getting on for delivering for the British people.
The Labour leader focused more on the NHS than Boris Johnson's leadership woes, but did deliver this.
They want him to change, but he can't. As always with this Prime Minister, when he's falling short, he just changes the rules and lowers the bar.
The SNP's Westminster leader said he'd had a revelation.
Week after week, I've called on this Prime Minister to resign. I've been met with a wall of noise from the Tory benches. I thought they were trying to shout me down. But all this time, Mr. Speaker, it turns out that 41% of them have been cheering me on.
Only 2 Scottish Conservative MPs backed the Prime Minister.
We now have the lame duck Prime Minister presiding over a divided party in a disunited kingdom.
The biggest and most powerful and effective advocate of the United Kingdom over the last time that I've been in has been that man there.
Boris Johnson remains defiant as he continues to battle to bring his own MPs back on side. Catherine Sampson, STV News, Westminster.
Other stories across Scotland, and the family of a man who went missing a month ago while camping in Bridge of Ochey have been told he's unlikely to be alive. 71-year-old Neil Skinner from Doncaster was last seen in the area at the start of May. His daughter says the family is distraught and has asked anyone on holiday in the area to keep an eye out for his body so they can bring him home.
A train line in Ayrshire has been forced to close after a sinkhole was discovered by the tracks. Network Rail says the track between Kilmarnock and Barathy will be closed for a number of weeks as repairs are carried out on the line. Replacement bus services have been put in place.
And the curling champion Eve Muirhead was among the Scots receiving honours from Prince Charles at Windsor Castle today. The curling skipper was named in the Queen's Birthday Honours list and was awarded both an MBE and an OBE. Earlier this year, the 32-year-old and her team won Team GB's only gold medal at the Winter Olympics in Beijing.
This is days that you just can't buy, and it's only going to happen once in your lifetime. So, of course, this is a really, really exciting day. The disappointment in 2018 and then to bounce back and get the gold medal in 2022 was definitely special. It took a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat and tears behind the scenes, but you know what, it has to be the best year.
Congratulations. Now, parents at a school in East Renfrewshire have accused the council of disability discrimination after services were cut without warning. Pupils at Isabel Mayer's school are usually offered 2 weeks respite care over the summer holidays. However, parents were told it has been axed to save cash, as Caroline Lewis reports.
Unlike many teenagers, heading to school is 17-year-old Christie's favourite part of the day. But what should have been the highlight of his academic year has quickly turned to a nightmare for his mum, Nicola.
Christy's an only child, so if he doesn't go to school, he's isolated, alone, unhappy, sad.
Christy is autistic and has Down syndrome. For the last 10 years, he's had access to a 2-week extended term, providing not only necessary care, but giving Christy a summer holiday like any other teenager. But with just weeks to go, his mum Nicola was told it was being axed in a bid to cut costs.
Anxious, angry, upset, sad for my child. They're going to miss out on the best 2 weeks of the school for them. It's full of fun, days trips. These are things we can't access with our children with their special needs. So for them, it's just wonderful. So they're just going to lose so much for their 2 weeks.
And Nicola isn't the only parent facing a difficult summer. Previously, 10 days care was offered to all 157 pupils, and while not every child took up the offer, the majority did. However, this year that's been reduced to just 6 days and is only being offered to 37 pupils. The rest will be offered none, leaving many parents scrambling to find care for their children.
People have been really devastated by the news and not actually knowing even how they'd managed to go to work. Just and those balances between what you need to do for all your children is so difficult anyway, and just to have that taken away from you with so little notice has really been devastating.
But the council has no plans to back down. In a statement, it said, "We understand the proposed change will be difficult for those impacted. Like all councils, we continue to face extremely challenging financial pressures, and a range of tough savings had to be made. The holiday provision previously available to all has been redesigned to support children with the most complex needs." But for young people like Christy, the reality of cutting costs ultimately comes at the price of their care. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
Now, Raman has the sport from Hampden, where the focus is on Scotland again.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
A very good evening from Hampden. After the disappointment of failing to qualify for the World Cup, a new qualification campaign begins for Scotland tonight as they get set to face Armenia in their Nations League opener. Now, this is a tournament which offers the Scots a chance to qualify for Euro 2024, just like it did for last year's Euros. And as Ronnie Charters now reports, Steve Clarke is determined his side get off to a winning start.
A new match, a new campaign, a new hope for success. Steve Clarke's squad now turn to the Nations League to reignite spirits in the country. And the Scotland boss is eyeing a successful run of major tournaments.
That's what we've spoken about since we didn't make this World Cup, is the next two tournaments. I have a squad of players whose ages will be good, whose experience will be good. It's a new tournament, so it's another tournament. It's one that we want to do well in, and if we can manage to finish top of the section and get into the A group for the next round of Nations League matches, then that would obviously be another sign of the progress that I think that we're making.
We qualified for the Euros through the Nations League and get into the playoffs. And I think since the manager's been in, we've went on a 9-game unbeaten run and an 8-game unbeaten run, and we need to try and start that again.
For the first time ever, Scotland will take on Armenia tonight. The 92nd ranked side in the world, who lost 9-0 to Norway in a friendly in March, shocked the Republic of Ireland with a 1-0 victory in their group opener last week.
I thought they were good in the game. Obviously you could see they'd maybe suffered a little bit for their friendly defeat in March, which was a heavy defeat. It took them 30 minutes to settle into the game, and then once they settled into the game they were good and deserved their win.
Pues completamente convencido de que sí.
The Scottish team will be very motivated. The situation is almost the same. Was almost the same with us because of the result against Norway. But I'm sure that your national team will do its best to give a joy to its supporters tomorrow.
Tonight, the Tartan Army will once again take their seats at Hampden Park. hoping this can be the start of a journey which leads to Germany 2024. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
From the national football team to the rugby side, and Gregor Townsend insists his decision to leave out starmen Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg for Scotland's summer tour of South America has nothing to do with the pair's behaviour during the Six Nations. Here's Jamie Borthwick.
This year's disappointing Six Nations was worsened for Scotland by revelations that several players had left the camp to go on a night out. Stuart Hogg and Finn Russell were among them, but the head coach says that their omission from his latest squad is simply to allow them to rest.
A lot of what needed to be sorted out and discussed had already happened in that week, and it was obviously done mainly behind closed doors before it obviously the public found out about on the Friday. But we'd had some really important meetings, both with individuals but also as a group, about what it means to play for Scotland.
The Scotland boss has reflected on what went wrong and believes this summer tour can provide a reset.
There's things that we can do better. I think and it starts with myself. We connected really well with our players when we were in lockdown. So that's something we're going to look to build on again. Spend more time as a group, getting to know each other better, forming those bonds. And those bonds can be formed much easier on tour.
Townsend's hoping the month away can unearth talents who will contend for places at next year's World Cup.
I can't really put into words. It's something I've been thinking about all my life. I've been wanting to be in the Scotland squad for ages, but now obviously it's a good milestone, but now I want to be playing, put my hand up for selection. So
a Scotland A side will play Chile in Santiago on June the 25th before 3 tests against Argentina in July. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Now, our eyes are on gold. That's the message from Team Scotland, with just 50 days to go until the start of the Commonwealth Games. To mark the occasion, the latest 50 Scottish athletes who'll compete in Birmingham were announced from across 7 sports, including boxing, judo and netball.
I can't actually believe it, and now it's 50 days to go, and now it's like a public announcement. I'm so excited to go tell friends and family, and it just seems real now because it's been like this thing in the back of your mind that we've been working towards.
For a judo player, when you stand on the mat, you don't really hear the crowd, but the atmosphere, it makes the atmosphere, doesn't it? And I think Glasgow was absolutely brilliant. So if it can be a little bit of that, then Birmingham will be great too.
It'd be amazing to get a gold, and that's really all I'm going for anyway. So I mean, it'd be good to get an on medal as well. Don't get me wrong, but eyes are on gold.
This is my 3rd games now, so exciting to be a part of. But now it's I'm going in 3 events to try and win, and I think we've got a realistic chance of that.
And we've just got some team news from the Scotland camp. Ralston, Suter, Hendry, McKenna, Armstrong and Christie come in for Scotland's game against Armenia in our Nations League opener tonight.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now Sean has your weather forecast.
Well, let me take you 1,500 miles away, just north of the Azores, where we've got the leftovers of a tropical storm. Tropical storm Alex, as I've said over the last couple of days, that is weakening and heading our way. It's going to bring us some blustery weather on Friday and Saturday. A big change to come, and a change to much more unsettled conditions. Let's look at the forecast.
Watch out for a sudden temperature drop. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
So that big change in the weather coming later on in the week. We've had some heavy thundery downpours across central and southern parts over the last couple of hours. Still the risk over the next few hours of those, but the possibility of some flooding. But those showers should tend to ease away. But what a difference compared to yesterday. Lovely sunshine, 20 degrees today with the cloud and rain, 13 and 14 degrees Celsius. But overnight should become largely dry once those showers ease away. A lot of mist and murk around, especially eastern parts. Now tomorrow morning, sunshine, a few scattered showers to start with, but the bulk of those showers running away to the northeast and through much of the afternoon. A lot of dry and sunny weather, particularly around the likes of Stirling, western parts of Fife, West Lothian, also Clackmannanshire and Falkirk, Lanarkshire. Here we've got that sunshine. Highs up to 19 or 20 degrees, so we're back to the warm sunshine here, but in the far west, turning breezier with some rain coming in later on the day. But the winds really start to pick up on Friday as the remnants of that tropical storm moves in from the Atlantic. What I've done here is shade the areas where we could get winds around 40 to 45 miles per hour, so you can see that is fairly widely, but OK, 40, 45, that's nothing compared to our winter storms when we get 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, but 40, 45 at this time of year, rather unusual and could still be disruptive, especially to ferry travel. Friday and Saturday, those strong winds are going to continue, so we've got some blustery days ahead with lots of showers, heavy at times. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Now, Disney's The Lion King has returned to the stage at the Edinburgh Playhouse after the show's previous run in the capital was cut short due to COVID.
Featuring hundreds of puppets, an award-winning soundtrack and an esteemed cast from around the globe, Laura Boyd is feeling the love tonight.
Transporting the Serengeti to Scotland, Disney's The Lion King is back at the Edinburgh Playhouse. For stars like Matthew Forbes, who was there when the show had to close due to the pandemic, it's not a moment too soon.
So lovely to be back in Edinburgh and just be back at this brilliant theatre. You can feel the joy to be able to be back in a room together and to be, celebrating this wonderful story.
The wonderful story has been seen by over 100 million people worldwide, one of whom is now proud to be head of the Pride as Simba.
I first saw the show when I was 10 years old. I was the age that the young Simbas are in the show, and seeing the show, you immediately kind of see yourself on the stage, and it does really feel like, oh my god, imagine doing that. And then kind of several years later, here I am getting to play adult Simbas.
From the first day when I got here, I thought the city is just so vibrant. I love it, and I'm enjoying this big theatre. I feel like I'm living my dream. It's always been my dream to play Nala.
Well, The Lion King is a show that is truly spectacular, and I've been lucky enough to go backstage and see behind the scenes into what goes into making it such a roaring success.
There's so many puppets, over 232 puppets throughout the show. So many different elements of puppets, so some that are worn by the performers, there's shadow puppetry as well. It just makes the scene look so much more dynamic. A lot of the elements are hand cut out, hand glued on, and just the detail is insane.
It takes 150 people to put on every single production of the show, so it is, in terms of scale, there's sort of nothing bigger.
It's a brilliant, beautiful, colourful show. It's so special.
A really big story with a massive amount of heart.
He's not lying. Lion King runs till the 2nd of July. Laura Boyd, STV News.
Looks spectacular. And just before we go, one Scottish drummer got the chance of a lifetime when he was pulled from the crowd to play with the rock band The Killers in Falkirk.
Yes, for 2 nights, Kyle Grieve held up a sign saying he could drum before frontman Brandon Flowers finally invited him on stage. The 28-year-old from Edinburgh said it was a dream come true. Wow, how amazing is that? Could you have done that, John?
Well, I've tried often enough at Bruce Springsteen concerts, shouted, he just ignored me, so I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Missed opportunity, John.
Good night.
Good night.